Hi everyone, Grey Power 60 here. I thought I would come on and let you know today is my birthday, April 12th. I was born in 1951 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. My mom and dad, their first anniversary will be on the 15th. Um, so I was their anniversary gift. And I thought maybe I would share a few little stories with you, taking um, taking note from Kay Othis Artist. She does stories a lot, and I love to hear the stories. I love to hear 'em. So I thought maybe I would share um, a little bit of my life story. I guess I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to put this up, but I thought maybe I would share it. So, um, my mom um, was working in Montreal in an elevator. She worked a couple of jobs, but she was an elevator operator. And my dad was in the army, and he was stationed in Montreal. And he met my mom on the elevator. He flirted with her and asked her out, and she wasn't sure. And I guess he asked her out again. And she said yes, but only if I could bring my sister, or I think it was my sister, her sister. So they went on a date, and my dad proposed to her. I think it was like 2 or 3 months later. So I'm not quite sure what year it was that they met, but they got married on April 15th, 1950. And then 1 year later, on April 12th, 1951, I was born. And then my brother was born a year and a half later. He was born in November 1952. So that's a year and a half. A year and a half. So we only lived in Montreal for a little while. As I said, Dad was in the military. He was in the army. Um, we moved to Ottawa when I was just a baby. I don't think I was a year old yet. We moved to Ottawa, and my dad's mom and dad were here. Um, my mom's mom was in Montreal, and my mom's father, I think, was in New Brunswick. They had separated. Um, my grandfather had gone to war and came back. He wasn't the same man, and he started to drink too much. And although he never slapped my mom or any of the kids, he was quite mean and rough with my grandmother. So she had left and went to Montreal, and from New Brunswick, which is where my mom was from, and that's where they met in Montreal. And then I pretty well grew up in Ottawa, um, up until I think I was about 10, and Dad got posted to a very small town in southwestern Ontario, um, a little communication base. He worked in accounts, doing the pay accounts. And so they moved there, and shortly after that, I'm trying to think of the timing. This was, of course, we lived there for 3 years, and then we moved back to Ottawa. My uncle had passed away. My grandmother was alone. My aunt was his only sister, was alone to raise 4 kids. So he had asked for a compassionate leave to come back to Ottawa, where I grew up until I got married. I got married in 1971, and I married a military boy, and we moved to Germany for 3 years. And from Germany, we moved back to Ontario. We were stationed in Camp Borden for a year, I guess. I guess it was about a year or so. Then we got posted to, by this time we were married 4 or 5 years. No, we were in Ottawa. We got posted to Camp Borden, then we went to Ottawa. Yes, we went to Ottawa, and I worked as the secretary at the Children's Hospital, and my ex-husband had remustered. He was he was a medical in the military, and then he remustered to an X-ray technician, and was working at the military hospital in Ottawa. And I worked at the Children's Hospital, which was just down the street. So we lived there for a while. We were married about six years or so before I got pregnant. And my daughter was born in 1977. And we moved to a small station in Manitoba. We lived there for 2 years. And then from there we got stationed to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. We lived there for 4 years. So altogether, I think we were married about 13 years or so when we separated, and I came back to Ottawa with we had adopted my son in 1980. We divorced in 86. So pretty well lived most of my life here in Ottawa. I've always loved it here. I've always loved the city. Even when we went traveling all over the country. My ex-husband's family lived in just outside Vancouver, British Columbia, and we used to drive back and forth from his parents to visit to my parents in Ottawa, Ontario, and back and forth, and we used to do a lot of that kind of stuff. So after the divorce, I started working for the federal government, where I retired 5 years ago. So I was almost 60 when I retired. And I have been here ever since. I used to travel so much. My ex and I used to travel a lot, and then after the divorce, really, I didn't travel a lot. Always missed it. But my favorite trip of all times was in 2004 when I went to visit my mom and stepdad, because my dad had passed away when he was only 62 in 1993. And he would have been 63 that year. So I am older than what my dad was. And my dad was older than his dad, because his dad died in 1950. He was 52. And he passed away, I was 6, so it would have been around 1957, 58. So I've always lived here. I raised my children here. Just, lived a pretty uneventful life. I've been pretty lucky. But I wanted to tell you a story about my teen years when we were living in Clinton, Ontario, which is southwestern Ontario. And a beautiful area to live in. And there was a bunch of us girls. This was the time of the Beatles hitting the United States. I was too young. When they came to Toronto, I wasn't allowed to go, even though my friends were going. But a bunch of us, there's 3 of us girls who got together, and we decided to form our group, a singing group. Can't believe that. Called the Beachcombers. We called ourselves the Beachcombers. And we all had the same outfits. And I remember what was really popular that summer was windbreaker, very thin nylon jackets that were good to wear just to keep the wind away, and they had hoods, and it was made of kind of a nylon material and zippered up and so on. So all 3 of us had the same jackets, the same running shoes, the same pants, the same shorts, the same tops. And we called ourselves. And I remember they were having an amateur night at the base. And my girlfriends and I went to audition. I don't know why we did, but we did. And of course, we didn't get in because we didn't practice. You know, we just went and did our thing. But that was a fun memory for me. I have a lot of fond memories of my life growing up. I was a very fortunate little girl. I I had two dreams as a young girl. You know, I would think I was about 6 or 7, and there were two things that I wanted to be more than anything in the world. I wanted to be a teacher, and I wanted to be a nun. Those were the two things that my heart was set on doing. Well, it wasn't meant to be. Um, I had gone on a retreat, and those Catholic girls out there will know what a retreat is. You go away from your family, which is actually, I think, the first time I'd ever been away from my family. I was 11 or 12. I think I was 11. I'm not sure. Went on a retreat where you go from Friday to Sunday night, and a Friday night you arrive, chitter chatter, so on. We have supper. As soon as supper is over, you do not speak, except, please and thank you kind of things, but you don't speak to anyone until Sunday night. And you go through the whole process of as if you were a novice becoming a nun. We had prayer time where you could reflect, say your prayers, read the Bible, do whatever. But young girls being young girls, and there were, where we were living, it was a convent, and there were the nuns, and then there was the novice. And these are the ones that want to be nuns, but they haven't taken their vows yet. And we partied. We had music playing, we were dancing, all totally against the rules. I was one to follow rules, but when there are 20, 30 girls in a dorm, and we were way up on the top floor, that's all I remember, being way up on the top floor, and the young girls had music playing, and I'm going to sneeze. I'm going to sneeze again. No. I think I feel a cold coming on. That's not a good time to get a cold when it's your birthday. But anyway. So that was absolutely, I loved it. I loved prayer. I loved the routine. I loved the silence. I loved everything about being a nun. I had made up my mind before I went that I wanted to be a nun. And when I went, and I was sure, and for a year I prayed and prayed, and that's what I wanted, and that's what I wanted, and I went to see the priest. And I talked to him, and he said to me that when you become a nun, you have to cut, in those days, you have to cut all ties with your family. You cannot see them or speak to them ever again. You will then become a bride of Jesus, of God, and you will live a life of, poverty and so on and so forth, and all the other things that they talk about and so on. And I said, well, once you become a nun, can't you, see your family? And he said, no. And that stopped me right there, because I was very, very close. There was only me and my brother in the family, and we were very, very close, loving family. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So that dream fell through. But the teacher part, I always wanted to be a teacher. I did not go to teachers college or anything, but I did get an opportunity after working for years and years on computers and in software at that time when it was very, very young, in the early 90s. I was offered a part-time teaching position at a college, at my local college, teaching software. And I did that for 6 years. So I did fulfill one of my dreams, and that was to teach. And it was the best experience because I was a very shy and timid girl. I was always, I never yelled. I never knew how to fight. I never knew, I mean, I guess it was my brother, but I never really knew that kind of life, a rough life. I had a very sheltered life, a very loving family, and very protected, and so on. So when I started teaching, and it came after a few times of, through my job, I had to teach people one-on-one how to work computers, different things, in the early days. And then it got to be like a group of, 4 or 5, and these were people I knew, and I was comfortable, and because I could never speak in front. At school, I remember I had to do a speech, and I fainted. I mean, I just couldn't do it. I could not do it. I threw up. I couldn't do it. And then I learned. I took a part in a play at school to help me, a very small part, very small. I think I had 2 lines, just to give me that courage to speak in front of people. I was terrified. I hated it. And it took a lot of years, a lot of time to be strong, being a single mom, working hard and getting ahead and so on. And eventually I was able to sort of speak in front of people. And then, so when it came to the teaching job, I wasn't afraid to teach. I wasn't afraid to go in front of class. I had taken a course at work that they had given on how to facilitate courses, and it was very helpful to me, and that was my dream, and that was it. So here I am 65 years later, and I am now doing videos. I am having fun, enjoying myself. I have started doing crafts that I've always kind of been interested in, but never really went into it. And it's been 1 year. March was my first anniversary of doing videos. And Zorro, leave her alone. She's gonna scratch you. Zorro, leave her alone. He wants to play with her and she doesn't want to play. Zorro. Yeah, see, I told you. And her nails haven't been cut, so you're going to really get it. Anyway, guys, this is way too long. I've told you my whole story of my whole life. I think over the last 30 years of my life, I have to admit, the first 30, I was very shy, very timid, very naive, protected, very spiritual, very Catholic. And the last 30 years of my life, up to now, I have been able to speak my mind a little bit more, stand up for myself a little bit more, and things like that. But basically, I've been very, very fortunate in my life. I've had a loving family. I've had 2 beautiful children, and that's it. And that's the story of my life. So I will let you go because this is way too long. I just wanted to come on to let you know that I am going to have a very happy birthday, even though it is raining, cold and rainy. It was snowing the other day, then it was warm, then it was snowing again, now it's raining. It's like the craziest April weather I've ever seen. Anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. Like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate it. I love your comments. I'm sorry if I don't always answer all of them. I try at least to give you a thumbs up when I read them. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.